This is the Scream franchise, and I'm watching these films not only to rank them, but to see how meta they get, and how hilarious they can be sometimes. Let's go. Scream 2, okay, let's go. Oh, brilliant. It starts with a cinema slaughter. We are introduced to the in-universe film, Stab. So, this is where things start to get a bit confusing. It's not that confusing, you know, maybe not yet. It's like a cheesy Hollywood version of the events of the first Scream, and it's used to mess with horror movie rules in a fun way. My first reaction to this was pretty positive because you got to watch it during the times, and during the times there wasn't a whole massive load of horror films which was taking the mick out of their own genre in the way Scream was. So it was fairly innovative. It was kind of breaking its own conventions. And a good mock film nowadays is hard to come by. At the Stab premiere, fans are wearing ghost face masks and cheering for blood, which is both hilarious and messed up when you know it's based on real life events. That's like people showing up to a documentary about John Wayne Gacy wearing clown costumes. Yeah, it's just a bit insensitive. Honestly, the amount of details in these films are ridiculous. In the first Scream film, Sidney Prescott makes an off-the-cuff joke saying that if she was cast as a fictionalized version of herself, with her luck it would be Tori Spelling, and then you have Stab where it is Tori Spelling.
See, if that was me, I would be out of there.
It's going all the way with the satirical humour, you know, taking the mick out of Hollywood culture. So while the audience is munching popcorn and watching Stab, the murders begin. And it sets the stakes high for the sequel because it's telling you it's going to be bigger, it's going to be dumber. So effectively, it's a jab at Hollywood sequels, even though it's kind of doing the same thing, so make of that what you will. Sidney is off to college now, and this is the foundation of the new murders. It's quite literally bigger in scale and cast size, and kill count, which is something explicitly mentioned, once again by Randy, with his new set of rules. I have heard people say that Randy's rules is kind of a lazy way of writing horror, and it's literally just Wes Craven explicitly outing the horror tropes, which to an extent he is.
Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
But I still found that Randy's rules is implemented really well in these films. I don't think it ruins anything. I think it actually adds to the absurdity of the situation, but in quite a good way. Again, it's teetering on that, is it too much? I don't think it is. At least not yet. So the press is everywhere, everyone wants to learn about Sidney, and Gail is back and she's being as invasive as ever.
Oh, Sidney, share with us, please.
Nice. And there are other people taking an interest, like a woman called Debbie Salt, who is asking Sidney all sorts of questions about the murders and her past. So at this point, Sidney is a very public figure. I mean, it makes sense, she's been involved in a pretty crazy situation. Let's go, Dewey's back! Yes! My favourite character. Over time, you realise that the Scream franchise uses music so much, especially as motifs to get you connected and familiar with specific characters and the vibe they bring. And I have to say, Dewey's theme song is one of my favourite scores in film, and I know that's a hot take because this is Scream, okay? There's so many amazing scores out there, but I love this song so much and it's perfect for him. And what's hilarious is it's not even an original score. It was taken from a John Travolta film called Broken Arrow. They just hijacked the song, gave it to Dewey, and now all I can think about when I hear this is Dewey. So I'm sorry, John Travolta, but I love this song, and it's Dewey's song. Hans Zimmer doesn't miss. Sidney settled into college life with her friend Hayley and her new boyfriend, Derek, who off the bat we're not sure if we can trust because, let's face it, her last boyfriend ended up being a bit questionable.
Omega Beta Zeta.
Hello?
I do like that the constant phone calls are established as a motif in this franchise. I think every horror antagonist needs their own stylistic way of doing things, which in a sense makes them as iconic as they are. I've learned from a lot of Scream fans that when it comes to the phone calls, there is an essence of sexiness to it. Man, honestly, I blame Billy for all of this. Billy Loomis, man, you've corrupted everyone, honestly.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Moms leave.
Hey, yo, Billy, you're looking kind of different, man. It looks like we've been reintroduced to Cotton Weary, and I'm happy because Sidney can finally apologise for everything that's happened to him.
Do you have any comments? You bitch.
Alright, never mind then.
The body count is always bigger. Number two, the Death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore.
How do we find the killer, Randy? That's what I want to know.
So the new group establishes a plan to figure out who the murderer is, but sadly, Randy, the exposition man, he is stabbed inside of a news van. Poor Randy. I liked him. I'll miss him, you know. He was a good lad, Randy. Good lad. I mean, at least Dewey hasn't been hurt. Okay, if anyone hurts my Dewey, then we're gonna have a problem. Something I remember, which will always be my highlight of the film, is when the car is ambushed by Ghostface. This scene is actually tense, probably because of how long we spend on it, and it just made me really anxious on my first watch. It's because you have Sydney and Haley who need to get out of the car whilst the killer is literally slumped in the driver's seat. Having said that, once you've gotten out of the car, just take the mask off, you know? Just take the mask off. It's right there. Like, come on. Come on. It's moments like this in horror films that really anger me, because in real life, let's be honest, you would just take the mask off, so, you know, all of this could be done and dusted, and you wouldn't have to let other people die. You can just drop the Scooby-Doo act and figure out who it is immediately. Actually, you know what? No, they do a better job in Scooby-Doo, because at least they take off the mask when they have the person apprehended. Person's knocked out, just take the mask off. But no, not Sydney and Haley. No, let's get out of the car. Leave Ghostface in the car and wait a little bit. Oh, shock horror, she's dead. That's just a shame, isn't it? Ugh, whatever. There's situations similar to this in this franchise that anger me a lot more. So this isn't too bad, but ugh. So while everyone is getting killed, Gale and Dewey are getting romantical.
I'm feeling romantical.
They're sniffing around for clues. They suspect the killer is Cotton Weary, who has now left prison, and he works as the film's central red herring, which kind of makes sense.
Now, is there some problem with the word innocent? I know, that's a big one.
But also it was proved that Cotton did not murder Sydney's mum, so now they have to figure out why he would even want to kill Sydney. It's that slow dread creeping back with Sydney looking over her shoulder, and I think that's what grabs you in Scream 2, because it's not just about the who, but also the why, you know? Like, why are these murderers back? Why are they trying to kill Sydney again? You're hoping for a reasonable explanation which warrants this, okay? This is a lot of work for someone to go through. This work includes a lot of murder, and I just don't want Dewey to die, okay? Kill Sydney, don't hurt Dewey. Dewey! The combative scenes with Dewey and Gale and Ghostface are pretty effective in this film. Like, the whole chase scene behind the window is quite fun. It retains these momentary slow elements, and then it just ramps up in intensity. I guess this is Wes Craven's bread and butter at this point. Wes Craven was really inspired by the work of Ingmar Bergman when he was studying film, but then he started implementing more speed into his work because a lot of people found it way too slow, at least what he was doing initially. I quite like Wes Craven as a filmmaker because he implements so many things from, you know, world cinema, and not just from this Hollywood bubble, especially during the 70s, 80s, 90s, when it was sort of on the rise and then fall, the collapse of the studio system. He was learning stuff from Alfred Hitchcock, you know, studying him. He would go over to European cinema like he was doing with Bergman, taking all sorts of things from this side of the spectrum. He would go back to LA, learn stuff about rebel filmmaking, you know, cheap stuff made by people like Roger Corman, who was basically giving rise to new auteur actors, people like Jack Nicholson. He just takes so many elements, and it ended up being this amalgamation, which basically became Elm Street and then evolved into Scream. It's just this mixing pot of stuff. So to definitively shut off any suspicions, Derek, Sydney's boyfriend, is murdered, which is the exact same thing Billy did, so again, we can't even trust that.
Derek!
So we reach the twist of the film, which of course every one of these is gonna have. And it turns out the killers are Mrs. Loomis, Billy's mum, who was disguised as Debbie Salt, the reporter, you know, the reporter from earlier. And Mickey, who is basically a film geek who just hangs around with everyone else and keeps referencing. He's kind of trying to be the new age Randy, except he doesn't have the flavor that Randy does. So you can either be Randy or you have to be the killer. You can't have two Randys.
You are dead!
But not all film geeks are killers, guys, okay? Like, not all cinephiles are murderers. I mean, maybe Zack Snyder fans are reaching that point. But until then, they seem to be doing okay. So of course, Billy's mum wants to get some good old-fashioned revenge, and Mickey just wants fame. For some people, it's a great motivator.
That's the kind of boy you'd like to take home to mom, if you had a mom.
Yeah, this guy is a moron. But they've been playing us, and to be fair, it came as a shock to me. Like, I'll give this film its flowers, it does a fairly decent job at not revealing too much, even if there are subtle hints now and again, you know, similar to the first film. I like that it's embedded in there. There are some exceptions, like Tarantino, for example, when he was writing Hateful Eight, he didn't know who poisoned the coffee until he reached that point in the writing phase, but for a lot of films, if you aren't dropping hints, or, you know, even the subtle things for your actors to convey, it can be quite lazy to have a twist with no lead up to that point. So Billy's mum digs into Sydney's past, and Mickey is just overly excited about recreating the murders just like the first film. Having said that, when I first watched it, it didn't feel like it landed anywhere near as well as it does in the first film. I think the ending of Scream 2 for me felt a little bit too theatrical, even though the film was clearly self-aware of that, because this whole reveal scene literally happens on a theatre stage. So talk about theatrics, there you go. And I also guess because this film's a true reenactment of a film made about a murder, which I'm watching on my TV as you watch me watch a film about a film made real about a murder in a previous film which inspired another murder which will inevitably be made into another film, inspiring more killings, meaning I'll have to watch that film, and so on and so forth, until we really don't know what's going on anymore. What's real? What's not real? We'll never know. It's a soap opera with extra gore, history has basically repeated itself, and repetition seems to be something Scream always wants to go back to, but at the same time, break. It's okay, at least Gail's there to save you. So Sydney is trapped, but Cotton Weary tips the scales in her favour. And I can't lie, it's pretty funny. Gail is knocked out, but she's alive. Some might say unfortunately. Nah, Gail's alright, even though she treats my sweet Dewey like a lapdog. Dewey survives though, so I'm happy about that. It's a messy win, cops stroll in late, as always, and the credits roll.
We always come back.
So obviously Scream 2 isn't the lightning in a bottle that the first Scream was, but it's still a sharp, self-aware slasher that leans hard into mocking horror sequels. The stab film within a film is a pretty funny jab at Hollywood's obsession with cashing in on trauma. It goes even deeper with the meta humor like Randy's sequel rules, but I wasn't too mad about it because it's just a continuation of the first one and it didn't feel overbearing. It does subvert expectations like killing off Randy, but where it stumbles compared to the first Scream is the pacing for me and the impact, and the body count just feels like an excess for a sequel to do. You know, it feels like they've done it for the sake of doing it because it's a sequel, as opposed to making it a tighter knit story, which the first one is so effective as. As it stands, Scream 2 is a decent sequel, you know, I'd watch it again, it's a fairly fun film, nowhere near as good as the first. Having said that, I'm hoping it doesn't follow history like the Chucky films, where the third film is plagued with production problems and takes a significant drop in quality and becomes overbearing. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. Some find the heavy, self-referential humour a bit much, like it's winking too hard at us, saying, look, come on, I'm mocking myself. And it can pull a lot of people out of the tension. You can see that as a detriment or as a good thing. I think it's teetering on still being a good thing, but my worry is it getting too deep, you know, going too far. So of course I'm going to rank it under the original. So it's time for the third one. Oh man. It literally starts on the Hollywood sign. I mean, how on the nose can you get? Scream 3 starts with Cotton Weary's girlfriend getting slashed up in her home. Cotton tries rushing to save her, basically dragging him back into the mess. And it's basically established that Ghostface is hunting for Sydney again. So we're in Hollywood now, where Stab 3 is getting shot. So I guess we already watched Stab 2, which means that was Scream 2, so that was a film within a film, it's getting meta. I'm gonna coin the term Screamception now, because this seems to be where the films are heading. So we discover that Sydney's been hiding from everything, and she's working as a counsellor. Totally off the grid, pretty valid decision, given her past. I guess she just wants none of it and wants to hide for the rest of her life, like a mole.
California Women's Crisis Counseling.
The more you watch Scream 3, the more you feel like you're falling into this strange meta world. To the extent of cameos from other film stars within this film, like Jay and Silent Bob, who are just there for the sake of being there, I guess. Is it just for the audience to go, oh look, it's them? That adds to the film. Oh look, it's Wes Craven again. You see what I mean by he really liked Hitchcock, okay? My guy just wants to be in all of his own films. So Sydney is starting to see ghosts now. Like actual ghosts. What happened? As I was rewatching the film for this video, I tried to maintain a strong composure and an understanding respect for Sydney's situation. What? Sydney! Some goofy
You're just like me.
You're just like me. I'm just like you. So you'll notice the actress Neve Campbell, who plays Sydney, they're not in this film a whole lot. She just kind of shows up when she really needs to be there, but you kind of wonder why is that the case when she's typically the main character? Not to mention the narrative is heavily focused on the murder of her mother. Well, this is because Neve Campbell was really busy, just a lot of scheduling issues, so I guess the result was her having random emotional outbursts, which would become her arc in this film. I'm not sure if it was the best thing for her, you know, with the whole ghost thing, but there you go. Basically, the film feels more outlandish than the others because the original script, written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote the first two Screams, was actually rewritten by someone else, Aaron Kruger. Yep, yeah, his surname's Kruger, you know, Friday the 13th, let's get the laughs out there. There was a lot of product constraints and a few script leaks, so Scream 3 basically got the Frankenstein's monster treatment. So Ghostface wastes no time. They kill Sarah on set, it's flashy and grim, and it sets a soap opera vibe even larger than Scream 2 did, which is the exact vibe I wasn't a massive fan of. You know, I was enjoying the grounded grittiness which Scream 1 provided, and now it's becoming this self-mocking thing. It's not to say it's not enjoyable, but it's kind of missing what originally pulled me in about the first film.
Off the record.
Always.
So Dewey and Gale are trying to resolve their differences. They find out that Gale is going to be killed next, and Dewey is trying to baby this random actor who is looking after Jennifer, who is playing Gale in the movie, so technically she's next on the hit list, not the real Gale. But then we find out that the killer is following a completely different script because there were 3 different iterations of this script and the killer clearly got one of them. And then they just start writing their own, so that makes that conversation kind of obsolete. Finally, Sydney's location has been discovered and she's got to get to safety. The group of actors are rounded up at the studio where it becomes a bloodbath, starting with the bodyguard, who is played by Patrick Warburton, which means whenever he's on screen I can just hear like, "Hey Peter."
You are the Hollywood hanger-oner.
Whoever smells the...
How could they have possibly known he was going to use a lighter for that? Like, come on. Oh, Dewey, you lovable idiot. Honestly, this whole van scene, like, it got under my gears, okay? The car scene in Scream 2, that angered me, but this was ridiculous. Look, let me just show you what they could have done, okay? It's pretty simple. Don't mind the shorts, it's hot, okay? I'll show you what should have been done. So we have the van here, okay? It's here. So we've seen Ghostface go under the van. All Dewey has to do with his gun is go, "Oh hey, what's up?" I don't get why this is an occurrence in films. I don't get it. It's just stupid, honestly. Yay, so Sydney's back. The gang is back together again, that's great. So this girl, Martha, turns up with a videotape. Hello, Martha. Welcome to the film. Who are you? So this is when the film is like, okay, we need to bring out the big guns. We need Mr. Exposition. So let's bring him back. Randy is back from the dead because he conveniently shot a video in the scenario that he died, and there needed to be a trilogy video.
Told you I'd make a movie someday.
So he comes through with new rules exclusively to a trilogy, meaning anyone can die and something about the past will be revealed. I think at this point Randy is just this omniscient Lovecraftian being with how much he knows. What the fuck? I forgot Carrie Fisher was in this. So she plays a woman called Bianca who is specifically there to mock Carrie Fisher and by extent Hollywood. So she's Carrie Fisher but not Carrie Fisher, and she's helping Gale and a woman playing Gale. I feel like I'm lucid dreaming at this point. So amongst the chaos, we're getting a commentary on the greed of Hollywood studios alongside identity and general mocking of actors and the things they have to do to stay relevant.
So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
Which is an interesting angle I didn't know this film would take, but it does. Most of it comes in the package of little quips and jokes, just alluding to what some actors have to do for sleazy, dodgy Hollywood producers. Yeah. The thing is, it's funny and gimmicky and whatever, but I'm trying to figure out how much satire is too much. Like, do we really need this? It's a Scream film, I get it's trying to take the mick out of itself and the industry it's in, but for me it's very shoehorned in, as it clearly was in the script. You can kind of feel it as you watch this film. It is a bit of a jumbled mess. It's like when a TV show goes so far they start to lose the essence of what made them work in the first place. It's like power scaling where you have to keep one-upping yourself, and if you take it in the wrong direction, you're probably going to be sacrificing some quality. I think this scene where Sydney is exploring the half-finished set is my favourite scene in the film because it grounds everything again. It goes back to its original horror roots, and in all fairness, a film studio of the original film makes for some pretty interesting moments which is used, like this bit. Okay, and now Sydney has become dumb again. Just leave. Your life is in grave danger. Why are you hanging about having an existential crisis?
Give mommy a kiss and we'll make up.
Right, okay, just wear a blanket. Pretty good idea, mate. Could have killed Sydney, but just stand there like a lemon. God, they're both so dumb. So the last remaining actors, alongside Gale and Dewey, are led to the mansion of John Milton, the sleazy producer who's helping make the film, and it's because there's a rap party. Not that this film is ever gonna rap, or at least not Stab 3, Scream 3 might have a chance. And of course Ghostface starts to pick them all off. This is definitely a weaker scene because it feels less methodical and clinical than the first film did, or even in the second. It all feels a bit goofier, it's all for the purpose of Sydney getting lured in, and it feels quite drawn out. Like, this whole film could have been cut so much and you wouldn't have missed anything. And of course Sydney gets drawn in because Gale and Dewey are being held hostage, and instead of getting any help to come with her, she just goes by herself because she's really smart in this film. So this results in a messy, really drawn out fight where we finally find out who the real killer of Sydney's mother is. And so after a really elaborate setup, which I find bizarre because first of all, how did the killer know Sydney was going to end up in this projector room, which conveniently had this specific video on it? Like, did they set this up prior in the hope that she would end up in this room, this specific room, or did they set up projectors all over the house so that they could cover the bases? So whichever room Sydney ends up in, there's always going to be a video playing, and then whoever's Ghostface will just sneak up on her and be like, aha, this is the video. It was all planned. This is the only room with this projector in. I am a genius.
Roman Bridger, director. And brother.
So the killer is Roman, the director of the Stab film, and yes, we discover he is Sydney's half-brother. The plot thickens, my god. Like, I do understand what's going on, but also it just feels like so much, and it starts to not land. It doesn't really shock me by this last confession scene, which realistically should be the most shocking scene of the film. I just don't really care. What I do like, however, is Sydney's reaction to this situation, because again, it's theatrical. This person is monologuing in front of her, and she's just there like, okay, this person killed my mum? Yeah, nah. I'm not having it.
God, why don't you stop your whining and get on with it? I've heard this shit before!
Stop! Wait a minute!
I'm at least glad the film knows it's a bit deflating in this scene, so Sydney just decides, yeah, it, I'm gonna go and straight up fight this guy purely out of anger. I gotta respect Sydney's game at this point, okay? She's a seasoned veteran, she's gotta do something about this. So Roman gets killed and the entire franchise ends with the ending of his heartbeat. There is nothing more that can be done with this franchise. Nothing. Scream 3 is the weakest I've seen so far in the franchise because it's now relying on its self-awareness, and Sydney's past just feels really shoehorned in. Of course, the script changes, just explains everything. My other issue with this film is it is very drawn out at a lot of points. It just goes on and on and on, and I just get deflated by the end. It's something I'm not too fussed about rewatching because it is to an extent a bit boring, which you wouldn't really expect because it has the film studio setting, which can be a really creative place to do stuff with, and only a small amount really stood out to me when they could have done a lot more with it. Not to mention the whole ghost mum past thing. I'm just not a fan. Again, it's not Scream to me. Scream is supposed to be this grounded thing, and then you have this ghost who, by the way, it looks awful. It looks terrible. How it's going like, Sydney. It's just so stupid. You've got the mockery of actors and the studio system. You've got the implementation of backstories, romance subplots about shady producers. It's very bloated for what it is. It's still pretty entertaining at parts, like it's not horrendous despite how much is going on, but I would watch Scream 2 and especially the original over this any day. It's just over reliant on that satire approach, and so much could have been cut, so I'm gonna put this at the very bottom. Anyways, this film ends in a lovely way. Everyone lives happily ever after, Dewey and Gale are together, Sydney is finally at peace with her dog. That's it. It's done. It's over. Scream 4. Is this an attempt to revitalise this series by blending its meta humour with the ever-evolving horror landscape and reboot culture? Maybe. What's funny is Scream 4 was almost scrapped because it was in pre-production for so long, like the development of this film was a nightmare. So during this film I have to mention that Wes Craven, I think his dedication speaks a lot about just getting this out, getting it done, because during the time of production he was battling a brain tumour. It was a really respectable thing to do, and sadly in 2015 he passed away, so Scream 4 was the last Scream film that Wes Craven directed. So regardless of what, think of the film, it is still awesome to see that they just pushed on with it and did it. So the film kicks off with a meta twist, which we never get enough of in these films apparently. We don't just get one, we get two fake opening scenes, which is kind of mental, and this reveals the Stab movie within a movie. Both of these opening scenes tell us everything we've already been told about Scream, or in their case, Stab. So now we have the real people, Trudy and Sherry. You're watching me talking about me watching a movie, including two presumptuous sequel movies based on the real events of the movie, which inspired sequels of a fake movie, which were based on true events, which is outlined in the real movies I watched previously, which means I need a drink. Man, I'm running out of tequila. It's got a sliver left. It's got a cute little hat though. So yes, these two get murdered, and it's based in Woodsboro, so history is now repeating itself for the millionth time. It sets that self-aware tone, and it's played for laughs more than anything else, but it does kind of pose the question, where do we go now? There was an alternative opening scene for Scream 4, and I have to admit, I prefer it so much more. It's a bit more witty, and it just feels tighter than what we ended up getting in the theatrical release, which is kind of drawn out. Like, it is funny, but it's a lot. I still can't believe Ghostface gets paraded in the way it does in this universe. If you hang up a Ghostface costume in Woodsboro, people are going to be fine with it, but the second you hang up a blow-up doll of Jeffrey Dahmer in Milwaukee, then that's a problem. But it's fine because it's taking the mick out of movies and audiences' reaction to them, I guess. I still can't look past it though. Like, why are these people celebrating this killer? Maybe the town of Woodsboro lacks a lot of funding, so they're capitalizing on murder for tourism in the same way Salem uses witch trials. I hate to say, but yeah, it's working on me, and I'd like to visit Salem at some point in Halloween. Subscribe, alright? If we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'll go and visit Salem. Alright, 20,000 and I'll go to the Mothman Festival in West Virginia. Hey, Sydney's back. So she returns to Woodsboro for a book tour about her survival. Yeah, she wrote a book. I mean, it's one way to make money. Pretty good idea. So she's now a self-help author. She's tense, she's revisiting old scars while the town preps for its 15th anniversary of the original killings. So you might have already noticed this, but this film looks kind of weird, in comparison with the other Scream films we watched, and there is a reason for that. There's this yellowish vintage haze over the shots. The filter was a deliberate choice by Wes Craven because he wanted to evoke the visual style of horror remakes that were prevalent at the time. I guess this was a way of Wes Craven to satirize the remake trend, but it just looks kind of off, kind of gross looking. It makes the film look way older than it really is, but not in a good way. Dewey! Let's go! His moustache has gotten thicker. That's what becoming a sheriff does to you. Oh yeah, so he's married to Gail now. That happened at the end of Scream 3. Very cute, very adorable. So now we meet Jill Roberts, who is Sydney's cousin, and her friend group. Kirby Reed, the horror-savvy cinephile, Olivia Morris, Charlie Walker, and Robbie Mercer. There's also a guy called Trevor, who's Jill's ex-boyfriend, and he just lurks about. He's kind of just like a leech, he's just kind of there. Their lives really revolve around social media and fame and horror fandom, and it makes them prime targets for Ghostface. And I guess Kirby, as a character, her wit and her knowledge of horror, it kind of makes her the new age Randy, which we've seen that in the past. People try to be Randy and they fail completely. The group's obsession with Stab mirrors real-world horror fan culture. I mean, this new cast's reliance on technology like Robbie's webcam and Jill's phone, it updates the franchise for the 2010s. And their awareness of horror tropes feels so much more ingrained in their characters and this film as a whole as opposed to the predecessors, because this is like a generation raised on horror movies. So in terms of characters and their knowledge of the whole situation, it's completely different from the predecessors. And that's good, because they were starting to get a little bit samey. Hey, Shaun of the Dead mentioned, let's go. I love this sequence. It is a great bait and switch, okay? I know Scream has its hit or misses with bait and switches, but this one is quite fun. Ghostface brutalizes Olivia, and Jill and Kirby watching horror from the other side of the street. Everyone's shaken up by the situation. Sydney's protective instincts kick in because she's been through the blender, so she knows what to do, as opposed to Kirby, whose cinephile knowledge doesn't really prove to be all that useful at the moment. Sometimes it helps to be brave as opposed to smart in these Scream films. So in the phone call, we really focus on Sydney's legacy, and that ties the new killings to the original killings. Things start to get very reminiscent of the first Scream film. The use of webcams and live feeds also modernizes the stalking, and it makes Ghostface feel like a more omnipresent being as opposed to someone just running around banking on things working out for them as they stab people. Ah yes, the Stabathon party. What a great idea. Why do we do this every time people start to get killed? Like, guys, have you seen the track record of having parties in Woodsboro? Okay, they never end well. So the survivors end up gathering at Kirby's house for safety. For some reason, we always end up at a house at the end of these films, unless you're the second one. Anyway, Ghostface attacks them. Of course they do. Live streaming his own death, and it reveals Charlie as one of the killers. He stabs Kirby and ties up Sydney, setting the stage for the final reveal. The climax focus on fame and reboot culture rather than personal revenge feels fresh, you know, to a good extent, but you wonder how many options do these films actually have at this point. There's so many ways you can have these motives feel justifiable for the killers until you hit a writer's roadblock. In terms of the reveal scenes, I feel like they get more and more underwhelming as they go on, and you start to get less shocked. It's just the monologue scenes where they go on about their motives. For some reason, it doesn't hit me the same as the first Scream does. There are films out there which make reveal scenes really memorable and impactful, and for some reason, Scream it feels like falling flat when it comes to these moments. So it's Jill, not Charlie, who is the mastermind, and she kills Charlie and reveals her plan to frame him, effectively becoming the new Sydney and gaining fame as a survivor. I did find that Sydney's quiet strength in these films really contrasts with Jill's desperation, because Jill wants to be Sydney so damn bad. So Jill's attempt to stage the scene mirrors Billy and Stu's theatrics in the first film. Jill's motive, wanting to be famous, it reflects the 2011's obsession with viral fame. It sets it apart from the past killers' personal grudges. So like Billy and Stu, Jill decides to copy them and stage this scene which looks like she survived this horrendous attack, but Sydney survived, which means they both get sent off to the same hospital. Anyway, Sydney electrocutes Jill with defibrillators, and Jill's final attempt to kill Sydney fails. And so she dies, and her dream of fame is shattered, but also kind of not, because she, I guess, still died being famous. I mean, not in the way she wanted, but she will be well known, as a sociopathic murderer. It's interesting because Jill's death is framed as a media spectacle, and this nods to the film's themes of fame and attention, and the epilogue really focuses on the media frenzy, which I actually liked. I liked this angle. I thought this was a cool, kind of bittersweet approach to take with this. I feel like it was a fitting end to a film obsessed with reboot culture. Scream 4 is like a rehash of the very first Scream film. They tried to replicate a lot of things. They make it gorier. I like that it's a bit more tight-knit. Having said that, it's not as good as the first one because nothing ever will be, let's be honest here. But the film's focus on remakes and reboots and the new rules of horror reflects its 2011 context, and it addresses the genre's evolution, which I, again, like. It has something to say. Even though I found the motives of the killers kind of underwhelming, it's still relevant to the message they're putting out there, and it's critiquing social media's impact on identity and attention. It goes into the Stab film so much, which it felt really overbearing in the third film, and now with this one, though you see so much more of it, it still feels more relevant to what they're trying to do with this. So I'm not as mad about it being used in this as opposed to the third film, which was just like, why, tell me something, say you're doing something with this. It was adding those new layers of self-awareness I was looking for because it was giving me something to work with, and it makes the franchise meta-commentary a bit more sharper than before. I really like the main trio in this film, Sydney, Dewey, and Gale. I think they have great chemistry in this film as opposed to the previous one. I love all of their growth, especially Dewey's insecurities and Sydney's growth from being a victim to becoming an author, and the introduction of a new generation really shows the franchise's ability to evolve whilst still to an extent honouring its roots. Ranking this film felt a little bit trickier because I knew I liked it more than Scream 3, I mean that's a given, but Scream 2 I'm a bit unsure of because there's aspects about this I really like and aspects about Scream 2 I really like, but to me I think Scream 2 edges out a little bit more. I think it's more of a rewatchable film as opposed to Scream 4, which is, it's kind of less rewatchable. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.